So my name is Taso, and I've been part of a really successful social gaming company called Slide. It was acquired by Google. We were sort of like the Zynga in 2009. Zynga ended up, beating us for a whole bunch of reasons, which I understand because I'm, very, very good friends with all the, people who made Zynga happen. Which, I can share some of that knowledge today as to how Zynga works and Slide worked and all that sort of stuff, so you guys have an understanding of how a social gaming company works. Yeah, so I think that's how I'm most relevant here. I'm a software engineer by background, so I understand software development. I've also helped co-found a bunch of really successful companies. One in the art space, it's called Artsy. Another one which spun out into a gaming platform for real-time gaming. It's called Game Closure. Actually, it spun off from a company that I started previously called Tap. But HTML5 WebSockets came out of it, and a whole bunch of really, really profound stuff. So I have a really good understanding of technology, which sounds like you guys do as well. But even, I think more importantly, I have a really strong understanding of user acquisition strategies, user acquisition tactics, viral acquisition channels, strategies and tactics, and all that sort of stuff that's really important to a social game, how to measure your DAUs, MAUs, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I'm really happy to talk to you guys about whatever I guess you're interested in. I would sort of kind of lay the foundation for this, I guess, meeting conversation here as metrics and analytics are the most important thing in any social gaming company. So any product decision that you make and any game design decision that you make should be directly tied to metrics. And if you don't have those, metrics to support your decision, then you're just making completely blind decisions. And to fill up earlier about how important metrics are, probably like, when we first met, we were talking about metrics and sort of stuff like that, and just happened to be a coincidence that you guys are actually working on that right now. So it's kind of coincidental. But yeah, I have a lot of experience with that. I was the lead data architect at Slide, so I built out the whole infrastructure for their analytics platform. It was the largest analytics platform outside of Google, so it was huge. We were larger than Facebook at the time. So, definitely have a lot of understanding of doing metrics at scale and having making products based off of those metrics. So I guess with that said, you guys can sort of throw my way any questions or things that you have, and we can have a conversation. There are a whole bunch of things that you can do to test, let's say, your viral acquisition strategy, right? You can see if one piece of functionality will lead to inviting more friends than another piece. So for example, if you were to say, well, we're going to develop two really small pieces of, let's say, I don't know, some in-game purchase, right? And when you buy the item in the game, it's required that you invite a friend or 5 friends in order to get that specific item. Well, there might be a huge difference in whether that in-game item, I'll just use the Formula 1 example since you guys are on that, is let's say, a new steering wheel or a new tire for your Formula 1 car, right? And you don't really know that until you test it, and you can test them all, right? But if you see that, oh, you know what, we think it's a new tire, we're going to put it out there, see how it works, it might have no effect, or maybe a person on average invites 1 or 2 friends. Whereas if you put a steering wheel on there, it could change your whole game. And it's strange stuff like that, which can really just make your game explode. And you have no idea until you actually test these things. But there's all these things in your game, I would imagine, just like any game, where you can really test what, just have KPIs per sort of item, per piece of functionality, and say, okay, what do we want to do with this piece of functionality? What do we want to do with this item? Do we want this to increase revenue? Do we want it to increase virality? Are we using this item as a piece of, are we using it as a way to measure, the retention of our users? What does this item or piece of functionality represent? And then you should create metrics around that and do multivariate testing around that specific piece of functionality. So, there's A/B testing, but multivariate testing is basically trying a whole bunch of different, pieces to see which one works best for that specific metric which you're gauging. So, yeah, I hope that answers the questions, or actually, get some gears spinning. When we were doing it at Slide, we didn't have the luxury of having a lot of tools that are actually available today. So, for example, I'm not sure how relevant these things are for gaming, but I would imagine there's a lot of things that are similar to it. Like, you know what Mixpanel is? Have you guys heard of Mixpanel?
No.
So it's called basically event-driven analytics. So for each event, there's analytics that are tied to it. And so let's say that I could use the example of a web page, which is just makes it really simple to understand, where on every action on that web page, per JavaScript event, whether they're clicking, whether they're moving a mouse, you're getting information sent in an AJAX style to the data warehouse so that you can see what's happening there in real time. And so, if you have an event where some pop-up happens on the website and they have to click something, and this is actually I could give a really great example of this. Then they'll get the data. But the thing is that I'll give a really practical example. So let's say that you have a sign-up form, right? And for some reason you release the sign-up form and no one ends up signing up. And it might be part of the game, I don't know, maybe you make a partnership with some company to sign up for something, whatever. And you just can't understand it. There's no errors that are really happening. And so it's just kind of strange. Well, what you can do is you can look at every event that's happening within that form. So if they type in their first name, Taso, they go to the next. By the time that they go to the next form, you've already seen that they've sent Taso because that event would have triggered an analytic, right? Duval, the next form. Now they see I sent Taso Du Val, and then it might be the phone number that they ask for in the form, where I just say, oh, you know what, I don't want to give my phone number. And you see everyone dropping off that phone number. So there's no errors, but there's clearly something where the user doesn't trust you for some reason in this context. So they might be dropping off, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, what is it? Maybe they don't like Formula One. Maybe the people who we made partnerships with, maybe they're bad. But it could just be that phone number that they're standoffish about. And it makes those kind of guesses really clear. It makes understanding what's going on really, really clear. So if you have analytics on every single event that's happening within your game, you'll see very clearly weird things that will be going on, and if they're good weird things or if they're bad weird things. And you can very quickly look to see, okay, well, they're supposed to be getting to point, let's say Q, and they're only getting to point, B. And why is it? And it's clearly this whole, sort of trough of analytics is missing. So, event-driven analytics are really, I think, what's key. And things like Mixpanel do this for the web. You can build your own. You can build your own in-house, but I don't think it's worth it because I think right now there's already tools that do this. Yeah, I mean, you could probably even. I think you could use Mixpanel even within Flex and within. I know Flex is AS is sort of like JavaScript in a sort of way, and yeah, all you have to do is basically send calls to their web servers and they take care of it. It's really beautiful. Actually, my intern at Slide created Mixpanel. So that's sort of how it came out. I mean, it's like a $300 million company now. Yeah, so I mean, he basically just took the idea of how we created all this stuff at Slide, and he said, okay, I'm just going to create a company that just does this, right? Like anyone can use this, and now the majority of Facebook games use Mixpanel. I mean, hundreds of thousands of websites use Mixpanel. I think they do something like, I don't know, many billions of pieces of analytics a day, because they do it per event, so they're collecting a lot of data. But yeah, stuff like that, Mixpanel and event-driven analytics is key.